Hello. Well, today I've decided to do something I've been trying to convince myself not to do. But I've decided to actually start a little bit of a project having to do with all sorts of rather interesting and cool types of stuff like tarot, numerology, esoteric topics, and we're gonna I'm gonna put them on just talk about some of this stuff a little bit and put them on YouTube channel. Even though I don't expect many people to really pay attention to this type of stuff, because by far it's really a minority of people who are interested in such things. But anyway, um, as you see, I'm using a screen capture tool, so I want to make sure it's running. Anyway, before I start, a little about myself. I am a little bit more about my interests. Our interests range from um, spirituality, metaphysics. Um, Actually, that's a huge interest of mine. Those are both huge interests of mine. Ancient civilizations. Um, I suppose at times I've been called a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, but that's okay too. But anyway, um, excuse me. What I'm gonna start doing is, if you look at me playing with my desktop right now, because I'll put something up on the screen shortly. Um, what I'm gonna do is start to try and make some basic recordings of some of these topics, and just and as a way, because I've had a lot of people over the years tell me that they had an interest in some of this stuff, but they don't know exactly where to start and stuff like that. So I think I don't have a huge setup where I am right now. It's obviously, you see I'm using a screen capture tool. I don't have a webcam going. I'm using a headset to record the audio. And at some point maybe I'll put like a webcam up and do something a little more fancy. But for the time being, it's going to be like this. As much as there are many YouTube videos I've seen that are similar to this. I'm also a programmer. I like programming, so that's why you see a lot of stuff on my desktop. You see some XML files. You see number of XML files. You see some screenshots of programs I worked on and things like that. And a lot of it is a lot of my programming is actually um, related to some of this esoteric stuff, to numerology, tarot, astrology, things like that. So as we go along, eventually I'll open up some of the apps um, I've been working on, and we'll use those programs to actually do a little bit of numerology and tarot. But before we begin, there has to be a fundamental there has to be fundamentals, right? I can't just start talking about numerology and tarot and throwing up apps and charts and stuff like that. And technically I suppose I could, but it might be a little confusing. I'm just going to try and start out from the beginning. So bear with me. I don't know how often I'll do this, but we'll find out. So tonight's first quote for first episode maybe, or first first um first video will be related to, I'll start with tarot. And tonight in particular, I'm going to start with the Major Arcana of Tarot, which are the major cards, the major suit, if you will, the major players in the deck. And if anyone who doesn't know um, what tarot is, it's divination. It is a tool that is it's ultimately a tool that's designed to unlock help you unlock your consciousness. And as you see right here, there's a couple of I did a little search and online. I went to Google. This is actually biddytarot.com, and these are the major arcana tarot card meanings. And I will show you I'll go through the major cards. I'll also show you there's some cool graphs over here, which is off of Pinterest, which I had to log into my Google account to actually look at some of this. Um, but you'll notice that there's a lot of meanings attached to tarot, and and before I go any further, I want to say there are more than the major arcana make up the first 22 cards of the deck. There is one deck I know that has 27 major arcana cards, but we won't get into that tonight. That'll be much later. Um, but most tarot decks have 78 cards total, 22 major cards, and the remainder are the minor cards. We're not going to touch the minor cards tonight. I think what will happen after I do this, um, the major cards, then I will come back and the next video will go into the first set of minor cards, and we'll do another video on the second set of minor cards, and so I can't go through all 78 cards in a single night. It wouldn't be beneficial for anyone, and it'd be tiring for me. So as you see, we have a number of stuff. I'm going to start with this right here though. So first thing you gotta know is the major arcana of tarot are what we call major cards because they represent really archetypes. Archetypes in consciousness that tend to come around quite a bit for everyone, whether you realize it or not. And there's a lot of I'm actually a studying transpersonal psychology right now, and so surprisingly, tarot is actually something that we talk about at times and stuff like that. I just actually read a cool um, peer-reviewed journal talking about dreams and archetypes and things like that, and that's basically what tarot is a tool that taps into some of that. And now you might say to yourself, well, there's only 22 archetypes. No, I mean, even though we look at it, the tarot deck or the tarot cards, we see there's a lot in the card. There's a lot, and they just don't have a single meaning. The meanings change depending on what aspect comes to attention in a tarot reading of the card. They change based on the orientation of the card. They can be read three-dimensionally, meaning there's not a static way to. If you put 3 tarot cards down, and it doesn't necessarily mean the reading. The reading can have meaning if you read the cards from the right to left, left to right, top to bottom, bottom to top. And in some of the more complex tarot readings, the spreads can be rather non-linear. They get complex quickly. And when you do a reading with tarot cards, it's called a spread. So if you hear me say spread, that just means it's a type of it's a tarot reading where the reader will pull X amount of cards and they'll put them down on the table in a certain way. That's a spread. And in particular spreads have particular meanings. And maybe I'll do a Google search on that. At some point we'll get into tarot spreads too. But for the time being and for tonight, we're just going to focus on. We're going to start with the major arcana here. Now, I think, like I said, they're archetypes. They are actually representative of the hero's journey. The hero's journey. Who wrote that? I should know the author. He wrote the book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. It's right on the tip of my tongue. I'm actually gonna look it up right now. So bear with me, because I want to know. I'm curious myself, because I know I should know this. It's just not The Hero with 1,000 Faces, and Joseph Campbell. That's the dude. Okay. So if you go to Amazon and you look at, if you really want a book on the hero's journey, then I have not read this book. I've looked at other books that talk about it a little bit. But this is apparently the pinnacle of the selection in many cases. Hero with 1,000 Faces. It really is about the hero's journey and how we go through repetitive cycles, and we try and free ourselves from these repetitive cycles, and we try and basically free ourselves from our physical our physical existence and go through what we call an ascension process, which is a topic for another time. But you'll notice that if you look at this book, they'll talk about archetypes and what shows up in each person as they go through these journeys. And I'll just, if I go here, you type in hero's journey, as you right there, and we just take a quick images. There you go. This is a good. This is like just a. This is just a very simple graph of the hero's journey. And if you look over at this one, it's a little more the ordinary world, call to adventure. The hero, which is an individual, goes through these things of this path continuously over and over again until they realize they reach enlightenment, if you will, in a sense. Now, if you look at this too, this type of plot or this type of technique is actually used by authors and in movies. And if you broke down each movie that has done well, you'll probably find that it has you can pick out the hero's journey in it and notice that there is that type of what's the word I'm looking for? Type of process going through the movie or the book. And so it's pretty cool. But anyway, tarot, let's go back to tarot. Tarot is basically about the hero's journey in a sense. And all 78 cards in the tarot deck represent the universe. And in that 78 card deck, pretty much anything is everything is there. I mean, like I said, even though there's only 78 cards altogether, there's so many more ways they can be read so many ways. And for example, if you read one card, you might find a small aspect of that card that sticks out, and that becomes a major focus of the reading and stuff like that. Now, but we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna stick to the Major Arcana today. Now, so we have this. This is Biddy, as I mentioned before. This is BiddyTarot.com, and this is probably one of the only places that I've seen where I can get a nice view of the major cards. This is one of the more commonly known decks. There are literally dozens, and dozens. There's probably hundreds of different tarot decks, and the artwork will be different, and they'll have different themes, and but for the most part, they still have the same fundamental meanings. I have a Shadowscapes deck, which is in tarot, which is much more. There's a lot more violets and blues in it. It's much more It's not really. It's much more fantasy based, and the cards look a lot different, but they have the same general meanings. There are some exceptions depending on how you choose to read. Like I said, like I'm gonna say, I should say, depending on the reader. Some some readers will read the card exactly as the book, because each tarot deck comes with a book, a guideline book, a little mini guideline book in the box with the cards usually, and it gives a general meaning of how each of the cards should be read. If cards come up reversed in a reading, then traditionally the reader will take the reverse of that card. Now, some readers are strict, read by what the book says. Some do not. Some go by intuition. I do more intuition. I'm more of an intuitive reader, meaning I don't even look at I've gotten to the point where I just look at the card, and what comes to me, I go with, and I'm usually much more accurate if I do that. If I stop and say, well, wait a second, let me pull out the book and look at the meaning, you'll get some accuracies, but I found that I'm much more accurate when you just go with intuition. Now, when you're first learning tarot, I do recommend looking at the book, because if you have no basis of tarot, if you never looked at a tarot deck before, then the book is going to give you the fundamental. And then after a while, you might give up looking at the book and just go with intuitive reading. But if you never look at it, if you've never read tarot before, I strongly recommend looking at the book. There is a number of books out there on tarot that are pretty good. Um, at some point, I might go into more depth in a particular book. But anyway, again, okay, let's get into the major arcana. I've rambled enough. I tend to do that. If I pause or stutter or seem to lose my train of thought, which I most likely will do, it's because I'm trying to think very quickly and verbalize what I'm thinking about or trying to describe it verbally, and I'm not very well at that. I'm much quicker at thinking than I am communicating verbally. But anyway, I apologize if that happens, but bear with me. Okay, so the first card, and these are laid out. The first card in the tarot in the major arcana is actually the first card in the deck. It's often assigned a number. These cards are assigned numbers, and when I get into numerology at a later date, we'll see how tarot can be paired with numerology, and you can do some other cool stuff. But for the time being, um, we're not going to go near numerology. Now tarot, we have these first card. The first card in the tarot deck um, is really the first. The first card is the Fool. If you look at this score right here, this would be the equivalent of the Fool. The Fool. And if we look at just this, it says upright. If you get it and it's upright, it means beginnings, innocence, a free spirit. If it's reversed, naive, foolishness, recklessness, risk-taking. Now, that is very basic. And in many cases, the Fool card does often represent the beginning of a journey. If you look at him, he looks like he's at the beginning of a journey. In this particular deck, he's sitting there, he has a flower in his hand, the sun is shining, he has his bag over his shoulder, and there's not a care in the world, right? He has his dog in the lower right of the card just with him, and they're ready to go on this journey. They're ready to go. And in many cases, that's really um is really the epitome of the beginning of a journey. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a new journey. When you read in tarot and the Fool comes up, again, we're talking about cycles, right? So if someone is in a rut and they keep repeating the same type of thing over and over and over again, and I've seen it especially when it comes to relationships of many different kinds, friendships, intimate relationships, marriages, um, situations with the parents and kids. If you keep repeating the same stuff, the same lesson, it's not uncommon that the Fool card comes up. And in that case, it's not really saying it's a beginning of a new journey. It's saying you're repeating the cycle again. You're the quote fool, if you will, in a sense of you're repeating. You're just going around and around in circles. You've gone through all the motions of the same cycle, and it's starting over again. A classic example of this would be, okay, I'll give you a class. I'll use myself for a classic example in these, and I'll use myself in many of these examples because I don't mind sharing. I mean, this is a video, the classic example with me would be, um, well, I'm trying to think of a pleasant one that really is you can really see it. Okay, I suppose a classic example would be my particular interest in women or girls, right? Um, Years ago, and I'm not that old, but years ago, um, I have a tendency to become friends with people who are quote the bad girl. I think that's all I'll have to say. It often have destructive personalities or do destructive things, um, and may and on one level they can be excellent. They may seem to be excellent friends, and they may very well be really good friends. They may be very good people, but on the other level they're very cold and very what's the word eye-centered, meaning that they're focused on them constantly, and everything they do in a sense, often anyway, is, from my experience, is to benefit them in one way or another. Nothing's ever really. It's it gets to the point where eventually you gotta wonder, well, what is the meaning? What is? Why are they really doing this, or why are they really doing that? And stuff like that. So that, in my case, for even like, you started years ago, I'd always have an interest in those particular girls. Don't know why. 100% I don't know why. I have an idea, and I'll keep it to myself because it goes with or past lives and things like that. But we're not talking about that tonight. But anyway, over the period of, I'd say, about 5 years, 6 years, well, actually more than that. Over the period of, actually much more than that, I'd say a couple decades. Now, again, I'm not that old. I don't want anyone to think I'm super super old. I'm not, but I'm I'm okay. I'm in my early 30s right now. So to put that out there, especially in my late teens and 20s, I would have I'd become friends with these types of girls, and the same thing would play. We'd be great friends, and then something would happen where friendship would fall through, and go through a period of upset. Did you do? Is it my fault the friendship fell through? Is it? But did I do something wrong? Did they do something wrong? Um, was there too much emotional entanglement on a level? And then eventually, the friendship will just. Eventually, what generally happened was, usually I would get so tired of the same stuff because the same situation would occur with the friendship. The same repetitive things would happen. I distance myself, and eventually the friendship would just dissolve. And when it dissolved, I'd feel great. I'd realize, oh, that wasn't necessarily that wasn't necessarily the best thing for me to be involved with that type of person. Um, but shortly after, um, like sometimes within weeks, sometimes within a couple days, um, but more often it would take a few months that I'd find myself back in the same situation with someone else. I'd become friends with someone else that was exactly like the person I just basically ended a friendship with, or stopped interacting with. And it was never like, oh, I'm not friends with you anymore. I never said that. We just stopped interacting. It was just you slowly you slowly distance yourself from the person. And so that was that would be that would be an instance where the fool would come. I would see the fool if I was seeing a tarot spread myself, which I have in the past, of in situations involving particular types of girls, and the fool comes up. I knew that it was me repeating the same cycle, and I was just not willing to accept it um, whatsoever. So that's just an example how the fool can represent the beginning of something totally new, or it could represent something that is repetitive. Now, if it's reversed, um, people will often say, I tend to read reverse cards as the energy is not quite, it's not, it takes on the same meaning as its upright, but not to the degree of being absolute. Like it'd be like saying if I saw it often when I see an upside down fool, I said you're most likely, there's a chance you might be starting a new journey. There's a chance you might be starting something you've already done. Um, Whereas some people who read it reverse will say, uh, like it will be the exact opposite of what it is upright. I very rarely read a reverse card like that. Usually it means like something may be coming into effect. You may, if you might be read like you need to begin a new journey. You need to get this card to be upright. Things like that. Anyway, let's move on because I don't want to focus too much on one card. The next card in the tarot deck is the Magician. The Magician, if you look at this right here, if it's upright, this site says it's power, skill, concentration, action, resourcefulness. If it's reversed, it's manipulation, poor planning, latent talents. The first thing you gotta know about the Magician is if you notice him, he's holding his hand, he's standing there, he has an infinity sign above his head, he's holding a rod to the sky, he has all these tools um, in the card, and I wish it wouldn't automatically show, because I'd like to show I would like it to stay like this while I hover over, but it's not going to do. Let me do that here. There's tools. It's really like when you think of the magician, the first thing that really comes to my mind is divine inspiration. It's the active. When you think of a magician, think of a magician. Often when I've seen the magician card come up for myself and others, it's usually when they are doing some incredible stuff. That's really like for me. I'm constantly when I have a magician, it usually means I'm involved. I'm research. I'm doing a lot of meditative. There's a lot of cool um, psychic phenomenon going on. You're divinely inspired. Your consciousness is reaching new heights. That's generally what the magician in my mind represents. Now again, if it's reversed, some people may say you're nothing like the magician. I rarely say that. I say, well, maybe if I see a reverse card, I say maybe you need to focus on seeing, moving, expanding your consciousness to see uh, what's really going on in the situation yourself. Because the magician um, really does see, and is very active and attempting to see the bigger picture behind things. That's the magician. Um, Again, I'm not going to pay attention too much of the reverse meanings on the back of these cards because I think reading a tarot card, as I've said a couple of times now, reading the tarot card reversed as meaning the exact opposite is not is often misleading. Um, but in some cases, I suppose I don't think I've ever, in very rare cases, I've read it like that. But 98% of the time, I never will. I usually pick up on different things. So if I don't seem to be giving much support for how these cards are portrayed on this site when they're reversed, that's the reason why. The third card, um, the High Priestess. The High Priestess is similar to the Magician, although it's the feminine component of the Magician. So instead of being the active component, the High Priestess is the knowing. It's extreme intuitive knowing. It is like you don't need to they don't need to do anything. They know. It's like divine knowing. If you think of feminine and masculine, um, feminine and masculine is polarities of each other. The masculine is the helper. The feminine component is the source in a sense. So in a sense, in that type of deal, um, feminine aspect would be more related to the creator, and the masculine energy is the helper. And is it surprising that the magician is the one that is more actively, is much more active in his ability to connect? He's doing more things. He's doing. If you look over at the magician again, it's almost like a ritual right here, right? Whereas the high priestess is much more just sitting there. There's no need for that. So if you look at it, if it's upright, this site says intuition, higher powers, mysteries, the subconscious mind. That's a good. Whereas the magician is the conscious mind. It's more played out. Reversed, hidden agendas need to listen to inner voice. Maybe sometimes. Needing to listen to inner voices may be a good indication, good card, a good description of that. Because if it's reversed, you might say, well, maybe you should pay attention to what your inner voice is telling you. The next card, here we go, is the Empress. The Empress is the mother figure. She represents spring. She has that spring feeling. If you look at, looks like she has motherly. Motherly is what you need to come away from that. And if you look at the image right here, everything about that is motherly. Very motherly. Look at the stars around her head. I think those are stars. She looks like she's holding a rod. She's sitting on like a very comfortable throne type of thing, but it's not the traditional like sit in the courtroom throne. Look at the colors around her. It's all yellows. She's wearing like a white gown. It looks like with flowers on it. It's motherly. It's motherly. It's spring. It's childbearing. Um, that is, in a nutshell, the Empress. So sometimes you see the Empress in readings, and it means a variety of different things. Like I said, the cards. We'll get into tarot spreads at some point. Um, Depending on how the card plays in its spread, it's going to influence the meaning. So I don't want to start saying these meanings just by looking at the card. I'm just trying to give you a basic overview of tarot, the tarot major cards. But it's really the womanly. It's really, like I said, motherly. It's the mother figure. It is the mother figure, in a sense. If you look, and now, if she's the mother figure, well, then the next card is the Emperor. And the Emperor is the father figure. Very straight, very narrow, very, if you look at him sitting there, that is the typical throne. Sitting there, um, you need it very, like, structuredly. Very structured. He's more sitting upright. If you could look at the Empress, she's more laid back. It appears, although they have just as much. They one card is not better than another in tarot. But if you look at the difference of how the Empress and the Emperor are sitting, that says a lot. The Emperor is much more rigid. The Empress is much more laid back. So she has a pillow she's leaning against. He's sitting in a very throne, holding like a scepter. Um, at the same time, uh, he's very all-knowing appearance. He has a very all-knowing appearance in this deck. Um, Looks like he's wearing some armor. He's ready to act if he has to. If you look at it, it looks like these might be ram heads or some sort of animal heads representing authority. Um, if you look at him, he has a white beard. Now that is a symbol of knowing and and wisdom in society, right? The father figure. Um, if we actually hover over this, authority figure, father figure, structure, solid foundation. So if it's reversed, they say it's dominion, excessive, control, rigidity, inflexible. Now, yes, in this case, I'd say if you get a reverse card, it could represent inflexibility because he's so rigid, or it could mean, and the other way of looking at reverse cards is this person maybe needs to take on the qualities of the Emperor more. And that's why the card's reversed. They need to take on the qualities of the Emperor more, and by doing so, the situation would be improved. And then obviously it would be upright. Um, See how those reverse cards can have various meanings? Uh, Now, the next card in the deck is the Hierophant, which is he's all about group conformity. He's all about religion. He's all about this is how we do things because this is how things have always been done. There's to a degree there's some wisdom in the card, but when you see the card, it usually means um, societal conformity in a sense. It isn't necessarily be bad, but it does have a degree of that societal conformity in religion. And there is a very big religious component to the Hierophant. Um, in some decks, he's not presented as a priest-like a figure. But if you look at it, you got two people down at the bottom of his feet, almost looking up at him, like worshiping him, and he's there, almost like instructing the two people in front of him, trying to give the meaning of things. He's wearing a crown. Again, you see sort of like a rod in his hand, similar to you see in the Magician and the one in the Empress and the Emperor holding. It's a little bit different, but he's very structured. Again, he's sitting in a throne type of thing, and if you look down at the bottom in this deck anyway, there's keys they look like there's keys at his feet, indicating that he holds the power, he holds the knowledge, um, and you should be happy to become him in a sense, or you need to listen to him. That's what this deck really says. This card says in many ways. In my deck, the Hierophant isn't a priest. He's like I said, it's more fantasy based. So he's the old tree, it's like the tree figure in the Lord of the Rings, and he holds the stories of history and he holds the stories of what has come before. So it varies a little bit from deck to deck. If the card is reversed, challenging the status quo. That's actually a very good interpretation, I think, of the reversed. You see it reversed, and if it's I've often seen it in people who are rebels who don't want to go along with conformity. They don't want to conform. The reverse Hierophant will often come up in there. They want to do something different. They want to perhaps take elements of that type of knowledge that the card might represent and do something different with it and expand on it instead of just believing that what has always been is the absolute truth. But again, rebels and people who are um, nonconformists, a little bit of anarchists at times, will often have the Hierophant come up in their spreads reversed. And I should know that because, like I said, I give you the example of the girls that I used to find interesting. The next card is the Lovers. Um, Lovers are really, in some cases, it can really represent love, like profound love between two people. In other cases, it can represent balance, the blending of masculine and feminine. The search. If you look at it, you have the woman on the right or the woman on the left and the man on the right. Um, you have you have an angel type figure in this card standing in the background above him in the cloud. You have the sun glowing. It's really a warm card. It represents, in many ways, it does represent the blending of masculine and feminine. Now, that can be, when I say that, that really counts as relationships too, right? So think of sex, think of union, that's what that card really represents. Not just the physical acts of it, but the higher awareness, the higher consciousness that comes from it. Um, it really is. It really is an amazing card. If it's reversed, it will. It will basically be. Let me check my time here. It will basically be maybe you're unbalanced in that. It could represent um, bad relationship potential. Maybe um, it may represent sometimes. I'm just like again on these cards. I'm giving out some of the basic examples I've come across over the years reading tarot. By no means are these the only meanings. Like I said, it depends on the spread. It depends on the orientation of the card, the spread, and the direction of the spread. There's a lot of meanings, but again, I'm just going through trying to give some basic overview of them. Um, it may mean, depending on how the card lays reverse, it may mean promiscuity that's unhealthy relationship, things like that. But overall, let's see what they say it is. Upright love, union, relationships, values, alignment, choices, reversed disharmony, imbalance, misalignment of values. That's what they say. Now, compared to what I just said, there's some similarities. There may not be some similarities, but pretty cool. That is the Lovers. The Chariot is really it's a victory card. I call it the victory. Think of a knight that comes strolling into the courtyard after a battle. Look at it. Look at this card. I mean, the dude's sitting there in some chariot type of thing. He has two sphinxes at his feet, black and white. In a sense, black and white can really represent justice. What is black? What is white? There's no doubt in his mind that what he pulled off was some sort of victory. He has, look at the wings right here above it, at the base of it. I'm trying to show you, but every time I hover over it, it's going to tell you what the meaning is. But it's right there. If you look over there, you got those wings, the winged disc. That the winged disc is a very, in a sense, is a very symbolic meaning. And if you look at ancient civilizations, I'd recommend go study what civilizations and what groups of people often represent themselves with the winged disc. But if you watch the movie Alexander, with what's the actor's name? But it has Anthony Hopkins in it. Alexander. It's like a 3-hour plus movie. There's a symbolic image towards the end of that movie when he's dying and he's sort of laying down, looking up, and he has a banner. There's a banner above him, and the banner is a representation of the winged disc, in a sense. And there's some hidden meaning behind it. I'm not going to give it away, but go could watch the movie if you really want to know what that meaning means. But look at the castles in the background. Again, he is holding. Is he holding like a sphere or a scepter? I can't tell. It looks like he's holding some sort of scepter. This dude has just went through a victory. Look at the colors, blue and goldish. He's decked out, man, and just almost looks like gold and blue, which is a very that's really like I've conquered something. I've completed a journey. I've did this. This is representative of good. I deserve to be bowed down to in a sense because it's a very good victory. Um, if it's reversed, it could represent again something that doesn't go so well, something that hasn't come to. You're not at the end of that point. It could. I've often seen this card come reversed when someone's working on something, maybe for a job or school or a project of some sort on their personal time, and the job and it's not complete. The card will often come up reversed, indicating that you may be close to completion, but you're not there yet. In other cases, this side's probably going to say the exact opposite of what they of that whole victory thing. Um, it could mean, well, let's take a look what they say. What do they say? Control, willpower, victory, assertion, determination, and it's reversed. It's lack of control and direction and aggression. Um, again, there's similarities of what they say and what I say, and overall, I think you can see that they're very similar. But look at the dude. He's it's a really interesting figure. Look at his eyes too. It almost looks like he's been up all night. He looks like tired. He has programmer eyes, man. Programmer eyes. It's like what programmers' eyes look like, almost like when they spend too much time in front of the screen working on projects, trying to conquer that program. And I'm being a little funny here, but it really does look like he's tired in a little bit. But that again, it's willpower, man. It's that willpower to complete what you start. Okay, the next card is strength. Strength is a very unique card in the sense as it's one of those cards that if you look at it right there in this deck, you really, if you look at her, she has the infinity sign. She's decked out in white gown. She has looks like a leaves and flowers wrapped around her head. Around her head, she has the infinity sign. The infinity sign at the top of the head represents divine control. She has that wisdom and that control. And if you look, she has a lion at her side. She's taming that lion. She has no problem at all touching that lion, opening that lion's mouth. It almost looks like she's patting him on the nose without any fear. She's going at it. She's doing that without any fear. She's not hesitation. Strength in many ways it's a building card. Often you see these cards come up when I've seen them come up when people are working on maybe starting a business, starting a new semester at school. It's like that when you think of the card, when you think of what strength is, think of willpower in a sense. And I know we just got to the chariot and they say willpower, but I often see willpower more associated with strength than I do with the chariot. Because you have to go through. It's like a building card. You know that you might have something hard to do, but through strength and determination, and knowing that you can do it, you're going to accomplish it. And let's see what they say it means. Strength, courage, patience, control, compassion. Again, strength, courage. Courage is a good word for it. Patience, control, compassion. They're all very good words for the strength card. Patience is a big one. Because when you go through a project, you're doing something that's hard, or trying to get something done, you got to have patience and control. Compassion again. I see how they do compassion in there, and if you look, we don't necessarily know what she's doing with the lion. She may be trying to help it in some way, take something out of its mouth. She's almost looking at it like she's helping the lion in some way. But again, the lion is actually a symbol of control. Strength more than anything. So, reverse, they say weakness, self-doubt, lack, or self-discipline. I wouldn't say necessarily weakness. Again, I don't read these cards. I very rarely read these cards reversed when they're reversed in the exact opposite of what they mean when they're upright. What I look at. But I would probably say more. I've often read them reverses. Person may need have to have more patience if they're waiting for like if they're interested if it's getting close to the review time at work and they're anticipating a raise and it hasn't come out yet. Patient. If I see a strength reverse, then it often means patience. You need to be patient. You need to be um, you know you got it. You just gotta wait for it. If you look at the card, the Hermit, right? The card, the Hermit, is an look at him. He looks like the wizard, one of the wizards from Harry Potter, man. It really is it's an introspective card. It's a card of searching a great inner search. You're reflecting upon yourself innerly, your inner self. Studious inner reflection. That's how I always see the Hermit. If you look, he's holding a rod. He's holding a lantern. He's searching in the dark. In many cases, the hermit represents searching within yourself, in every crevice of yourself, and shining light upon it. Shining light of why these things are happening to you, why something may be happening to you, why your personality is like this, why it's just like anything. Why are you feeling the way you're feeling? It really is like the professor trying to study himself. Um, and reversed, when I see the hermit reversed, I often, more than likely, will say that represents, in many cases, it's come out to you need to reflect um, on yourself. The source of the spread is not external; it's within yourself. You need to become the hermit. You need to look at yourself with it from within. Sometimes I'll read it as if they're a school, college age or something, and they haven't decided. I'll ask the question if I see the hermit reverse, are you getting ready to go to school? And often they'll say yes, or I'm thinking about it, or stuff like that. It's like, but again, that's what that card represents. Really, really self-reflective. And if you look at this, soul searching, introspection, being alone, inner guide. That is a big component of the hermit. The hermit is often a recluse while he's going through while he's doing his introspection and looking in. Reversed, isolation, loneliness, withdrawal. They say. I do not believe that one bit. Because how can if the card is being alone upright, how can it be withdraw loneliness and isolation when it's reversed? I don't agree with that reverse meaning on that card at all. I view when it's reversed, I often see like the person is much more outspoken. They're hanging out with much more people. They're not spending much time alone. They may not be reflecting on self. They may be much more extroverted, and that's what I often see when I see the hermit is reversed. And in some cases when it's reversed, that's why I say you got to become, even though they're doing all this interaction with others and stuff, I'm like, no, maybe you have to look within. You might have to spend some time alone, just reflecting on this type of whatever situations in your life's going on. But I do not agree with that, with that reverse meaning of the hermit by any means. The next card is the Wheel of Fortune. The wheel in tarot is probably one of the only. It's probably the only card that represents fate in a sense. It's the only card that you can sort of tie to fate. When the wheel comes up in a tarot spread, regardless of the situation that's being discussed in the thread, the wheel means this had to come out now. This is the card that represents fate, karma. This needed to happen now. There's no getting around it. You got to go through it. And until you go through it, you're probably gonna not. You got to go through the situation usually. And in many cases it's not as trivial. It can be difficult because when you start talking about fate and karma and the wheel of fortune, it may not be this may be coming to the surface now in a situation in a tarot spread because of something you did in a previous incarnation or something. Now I know not everyone believes in reincarnation. If you don't believe in reincarnation, then the Wheel of Fortune card simply means God works in mysterious ways for you. But no, at some level, there's a reason why this is occurring. and it was time for it. This was the moment that it had to occur. If you look at it now, upright, good luck, karma, life cycles, destiny, a turning point. In reverse is bad luck, negative, external forces out of control. I never tie the word negative to any tarot card. I think that's a bad mistake to do. If it's reversed, I often say, well, this situation could have been avoided. It didn't need to happen. That's what I usually say. If it's depending on the spread again, this situation did not need to happen. If you didn't want it to, it wasn't something that was fate driven, or it wasn't something that had to happen for you. It's something that really didn't need to happen, but it did. Or you need to start paying attention to the situation because it's possible that there is a hidden meaning that behind it that is very well needs to come out. It needs to happen, and the reason why the Wheel of Fortune card is reversed is because it hasn't you haven't really hit in that point where it's gonna come out. It's gonna continually expand, and eventually that card's gonna be upright. Again, just two examples I might use. The next card is Justice, man. Justice is all representative about black and white, right and wrong. The court, when you see Justice, think about the first thing that should come to mind, just to give you an idea what a card feels like, is the court system. Look, he's holding the scale of justice. He's sitting at another throne. He's holding a sword upright. He's holding a crown. Think of a judge. Think of a judge. Think of courts. Think of if you like your ancient civilizations, think of when the person in ancient Egypt, I think, what is it, when the guy dies, his heart is put on one side of the scale, the feather on the other, and his heart has to weigh less than the feather in order to go to the pleasant place. If it weighs more than the feather, then you haven't learned your lesson. But that's really what it's justice is also about truth too. Ultimate truth, regardless of what the person may want truth to be. It's about truth. It's not about mistruths or versions of truth. It is about absolute truth. Um, Upright, justice, fairness, truth, cause and effect, law. Reverse is unfairness, lack of accountability, dishonesty. Um, if it's reversed, I often say that there may, if depending on again the spread and the situation that's being portrayed in the spread, could say, well, there's something hidden, something the absolute truth hasn't come out yet, or it very well could be, something's not right. Someone's lying to you, and stuff like that. Again, with the spread. Or if it's reversed, you could say you need to look for the absolute truth and dig into the situation and see you're missing something. It could mean something like that too. The next card is the Hangman. The Hangman is a very interesting card. Often it may mean self-sacrifice. Often the words that come to mind when I usually talk about the Hangman is things are not what they seem. It's what they seem. And if you look at him, he has a halo around his head. He's hung upside down in what appears to be a tree. And he's bound. He's bound by his back. You have to free yourself. You have to unbind yourself and turn yourself upright. Um, Often this card will come up if, like I said, something is not as it seems. You're missing something. Um, in general, the person you might have. I remembered years ago I listened to someone talk about a spread they did. A reader gave a spread to. I don't know who these people were. I was listening to it on a radio show, and she said a girl came to her and was talking about a guy she just met, and she thought it was, and she had some questions, and one of the cards that came up was the Hangman, and the woman said something is not as it seems with him. So yeah, something is not. He's not as it seems. That is not always necessarily the case. Again, self-sacrifice is also a common theme in the Hangman. Um, being bound, binding yourself in some way in a situation where you have to free yourself from a situation you may put yourself in, maybe dependent of the Hangman too, be representative of the Hangman too. Um, Things like that. What do they say? Suspension, restriction, letting go, sacrifice. letting go, restriction, suspension, it makes all. I really relate to that. Reverse is martyrdom, indecision, delay. When it's they say that anyway. When it's reversed, um, I've often said there's nothing it's as it seems in some cases. Um, you're very free flowing. You're not suspended. You're not stagnated. You free yourself from something. Again, they're similar. You can see I word things a little bit differently. The next card is death. Death is, first of all, death does not mean death, physical death. Death is all about transformation. In in one of my decks, the death card is actually the Phoenix, which I think portrays the card much more better. Death is the end of something, and the end of something old, the beginning of something new. It's transformative. It's all about transformation. The situation you're in is going to provide a transformative um, result, regardless of what it may be. And if you look at it, you got the skeleton on a horse, on a pale white horse. He's holding this flag. Yeah, it looks like you got someone dead on the ground at his feet. It looks like actually the king. If I think that dude, like there's like a king at beneath the floor, with um beneath the horse feet of the horse, and it looks like there's a crown down on the ground. So someone's, again, that's symbolic right there, right there. You have a dead king on the ground. Transformation. But at the same time, look at the sun in the background. The sun in the background is coming up above the horizon, meaning that this isn't the end. It's the end as you know it. The sun still rises tomorrow, and transformative things are about to occur. And it looks like you have another. It looks like you almost have a religious figure standing with two kids next to him, almost like pleading with the death. Um, Very interesting card. When it's reversed, I've seen it reversed where I often read it as you're in the beginning of a transformative experience. It's not quite there yet. Things are lining up to become much more transformative, and something will eventually come to an end. What do they say? Upright endings, beginnings, change, transformation, transition. Reversed, transition to change, unable to move on. In this case, I actually do agree very much with the reverse meaning. That's a very well resistant to change. Resistant to change is probably the best, a very good representation of that card when it's reversed in many cases. The next card is Temperance. Temperance is all about balance. Temperance is all about balance. You have an angel, you have two cups, you sort of see the water flowing back and forth. You got, again, the sun in the background. It looks like he has a crown. He's standing in water. It's a beautiful card. Does that look like the halo around his head and a third eye? And it's all about, like, in many cases, temperance is about emotional balance. And I believe that's how I read it. Emotional balance. You look at the water in the card. Look at the colors. You got light blues. You got blues. You got whites. It's a balance of mind and emotion in many cases, and just trying to find that inner space. In my opinion, if I look at balance, moderation, patience, purpose, meaning, again, that's balance, moderation, patience, purpose. Trying to see the patience, trying to see the meaning, but you're really calm. It really has a calm feeling to it. Reverse is imbalance, excess, lack of long-term vision. I don't know if I believe about the lack of long-term vision. When I usually see it as reverse, it usually indicates that someone is polarized more in one way, much more than another. You see much more polarization. I've often seen much more polarization when I've seen temperance cards reversed. And of course, you're not going to have that patience or that balance if it's reversed. But in many cases, the next card is the devil. The devil card does not mean the devil. It's an archetype again. Often I've seen people. If you look at it though, if you look at the devil card, you have the devil. You have these male and female at his feet with chains around his neck. But if you look, the chains around their neck isn't tight. They can remove those chains at any point. You can always free yourself from the situations that the devil card often represents. Often it represents addictions, whether they be drugs, alcohol, sex, addictive person. You might be constantly going in a repeating pattern, getting in the same situations. That's representative of the devil card. Um, it can be related to a relationship wise. You're falling for the same people. The same shit keeps happening. It's all about that. When I see the devil card come up for people, it's usually related to something they're refusing to let go of, to free themselves from, whether it be fear, an addiction, um, a person in a relationship. That's some of the things I've seen the devil card come up for people. Um, in later videos, we'll go into period numbers with numerology and how when we tie the tarot cards to numerology, you'll see how the devil card can come up in that too, and and how and how you can correlate a time, a period of time where this person will have this more chance of the devil influences or a tarot influences influencing them. That's coming later though, not tonight. Um, the next card is the Tower. The Tower is one of the more chaotic cards in the deck. If you look at it, you see a tower, it's getting struck by lightning, you got fire, you got people jumping out of the windows, it looks like the tower's on a cliff, they're falling to their doom. The tower represents sudden change. Um, before I continue on, the devil card reversed, obviously, let's see what they say. Upright bondage, addiction, sexuality, materialism, again. Reversed is detachment, breaking free, power, and reclaimed. When I see it reversed, it's common to see it's either usually most of the time it either means I agree with the breaking free, or you're approaching a situation which may bind you. You might get into a situation if you're starting to come into contact with another addictive things, but you haven't really dove into it. Often I've noticed that the devil card will come up too. Okay, back to the tower. Tower again means sudden change. Situations will occur. A situation that occurs suddenly. Obviously, looking at the card, you can see why. It's really good representation. There's really no hidden meaning behind it. Um, you're driving to work one day, calm roads. All of a sudden, a storm comes in, tornado touches down and flips your car over. That's the tower. Um, you're struggling with your bills. You're and paying you're struggling paying your bills. Um, you're not making as much money as you'd like to live comfortably. All of a sudden you open your door and Ed McMahon's standing there with a $10 million check saying you won. That's the tower. It's very sudden, rapid changes that are unexpected. That can't be really tracked. They can't be really planned for. Um, car accidents, plane crashes, winning the lottery. I don't know. Winning your dream vacation, all aspects of the tower. I think we tend to think based on that it's only destructive actions are representative of the tower. No, that's not the case. Anything that occurs that changes your worldview or changes your situation drastically in a very short period of time are representatives of the tower. Often reversed, I usually view that as either it's very mundane, very expected, very same old, or it could mean you might be approaching it. You pay attention because you might be approaching something where something unexpected happens. Now, if we look at what they say, disaster, upheaval, sudden change, revelation. Again, I don't agree with disaster. I'm more inclined to say sudden change or revelation. Upheaval, if it changes what your general life view and what you think, again, the tower can really be positive too. That's why I don't like disaster, because if you win the lottery and it sudden change, it's still an aspect of the tower in my opinion. Reversed, avoidance of disaster, fear of change. I don't believe it's fear of change. Avoidance of disaster, I don't like how they word that. maybe you avoided the disaster. Okay, I'll agree with that. Maybe you avoided the disaster. I think in most cases, like I've already said, I view it as really it's not sudden. The change is not going to be sudden. It's much more slow moving, or be prepared that you may something sudden may occur. The card following the Tower is the Star. The Star is all about enlightenment. It's all about knowing. It's all about revelation. It's all about look at her. You have a naked woman, pouring out water, moving water from one place to the other. You have a huge star in the sky surrounded by other stars. You have looks like a bird in the background on a tree. It's all about really beginning to see the hidden meanings behind things. Um, it's about just that knowing that discovery, self-discovery, discovery of situations, discovery of what's going on in the world, discovery and realize and seeing it. It's really about it's an illumination. It's illumination. That's really what it means. Reversed, reverse. Well, let's see what they say. Let's see if they upright, hope, right, spirituality, renewal, inspiration, serenity. All good words too. Reversed is lack of faith, despair, discouragement. Um, I tend to view it if I see it reversed. I can agree with a little bit with the discouragement. I often say you gotta look a little more. Look at it. Look at the situation in a different way. You have to look at it a different way, and that by but looking at the situation in this way, or being willing to deviate from what you think the situation means, or why is it occurring, you enlighten yourself to maybe other possible meanings. Now, the next card is the moon. The moon is mysterious. You look at it, you have a big moon in the night sky, you have dogs playing, you have a forest, you have some water, it looks like you have a lobster or a crab. It's all about mysterious, the mysterious forces. When you see the moon, I often say weird things can happen if the moon's in play. And you might not necessarily ever know why they occur. It's really that mysterious card. It's a very mysterious card. A good example of what the moon is. Think of late. We're in October right now. Think of a late October evening. The moon's coming. Kids are out playing it. The leaves are falling off the trees. The wind's blowing. It's really that mischief in a sense, sensation or mischief energy. It's very mysterious. Um, I'm trying to think of an example where I've done a reading where the moon's come up and very ah I got one. I've sometimes I'll see the moon come up when I do readings so people experience like psychic phenomenon, spiritual experiences, things like that, meditative experiences. The moon comes up often. If we put on here, what do they say it means? Illusion, fear, anxiety, insecurity of subconscious, release of fear, unhappiness. I really don't. I can see the subconscious, and I can see because the subconscious is not always clear, which is really dependent of the moon. It's not clear. It's mysterious. I can see that. Insecurity, anxiety, and fear. Illusion. I don't agree with those because illusion makes it seem like it's not real when it is. When it's reversed, you have release of fear, unhappiness, confusion. When it's reversed, I've often seen the moon reverse card when something is completely obvious. There's nothing hidden. There's no hidden meaning behind it. It means what it means. An example of that would be if you do a reading and we'll go back to the relationship example again, where the card may say, well, maybe your significant other is doing something for a reason, and it's about money in the cards, and the moon is reversed, and it's saying there's no hidden meaning. It's about money. It's about money. It's about this. It's about that. It's about that. Whatever. And then later you find out it's exactly there was no hidden meaning behind it. Again, we're getting down to the end of these cards though. The next one is the sun. The sun is about enlightenment. It's about happy experiences. It's about just profound. It really is profound joy, happiness, enlightenment. Everything is obvious. Everything is good going. It's an amazing card. It is really an amazing card. It comes after. It's funny how it comes after the moon and the star, because the star sort of like they sort of go in an order: star, moon, sun. It sort of follows the preceding two cards in in process. Um, it's a great card, and if you look at it, it really does mean warm, fun, warmth, success, positivity, vitality. Agree with that? Reverse, they say it means temporary depression, lack of success. Um, Again, I've been saying throughout this recording, I don't believe in the exact opposite. What I often say is, if the sun's reversed, you got maybe you're working on trying to bring something to fruition that will be really great. But I don't try and provide a negative spin on the cards. Some of these reverse meanings I think, are negative, and they're just going to get people thinking negativity, and it's going to make it more difficult for them. The next card is Judgment. Judgment is call to attention, rebirth. Um, it really does mean a call to attention and rebirth. You're something's getting your attention. If you look, there's an angel blowing a trumpet. Is that a Maltese cross on that trumpet too? I'd have to double check. It might be. Yeah, people looking up at below. They're finally seeing something. When I see judgment, it doesn't mean you're going to be judged, other than you judging yourself. But it does mean something's going to be called to attention. Something that's hidden may come out to the surface. A good example of this is, and I know we haven't gone into numerology and tarot combining the two yet, but last year, September or July 2016 to July 2017, the United States as a whole was the major governing archetype of tarot governing the country was judgment, meaning basically it'd be a year of where a lot of stuff that was beneath the surface would come to attention and come to the surface, and that's exactly what happened. And I'm not going to tell you how those calculations are done yet, because we'll get into that later in a later video. Reversed. Um, Often I see when I see a reversed uh, judgment card, I say you need to pay attention more. You're not seeing something. You need to really pay. It really does mean, in my opinion, you really need to pay attention more. That's how I usually view the card. They view it as judgment, rebirth, inner calling, absolution. Reversed is self-doubt, refusal, or self-examination. Again, they basically say they have different meanings. They give you different meanings. Very similar. At the same time, they word them differently. The final card of the major arcana is the world. The world is completion. If you look at, you have this woman at the bottom. She's wrapped up in like a cloth or almost like a tunic or like a scarf of some sort. She's got a wreath almost around circling her. You have you have look at the heads in the corner. I think they are symbolic of like divine presences. It really means like completion, 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 completion. Um, Completion of a cycle, completion of a situation. It's a great card. You've come to the end of the journey in this particular case. Are you going to continue on and go somewhere new, or are you going to repeat again and come up with the full card for the same journey? That's what it really means. They say it means completion, integration, accomplishment, travel. Reverse, lack of completion, lack of closure. Okay, I'll agree with both those. Um, Again, when it's reversed, I may say it's not. They say lack of completion. I say, well, lack of completion makes it seem like it's again negative. Like you lost your chance to complete something. I would say it more like you're not done yet. It hasn't completed yet. I would just change the wording with it. Those are the major arcana. Um, I'm gonna. The last thing I'm gonna show tonight is this cool Pinterest thing. And again, if you if you look at some of this stuff, they give you some cool stuff. I do not want that. I already am logged in. What the hell? uh, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be. I should be logged into here. I don't know why it's playing games with me. No, I don't care about this. No, 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 no. Get lost. I want. Where's the? Jeez. Well, well, if you look over here, you sort of see the Fool beginning, the Magician action, the High Priestess awareness, the Empress abundance, the Emperor authority, the Hypocrite invocation, the Lover's relationship, the Chariot victory, the Strength patience, the Hermit introspection, Wheel of Fortune is destiny, Justice is decision, the Hangman is sacrifice, Death is transformations, Temperance is balance, the Devil materialism, the Tower rude awakening, the Star is hope, the Moon is deception, the Sun is life, the Judgment is rebirth, and the World is accomplishment. They sort of give you like they sort of give you that over there. They give you you have all this cool stuff. I thought they're are they missing some? There's 22 here. I don't know why that says 0 through 20. That's weird. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20. They're using 0. That's why. It's part of one of the reasons. But anyway, that's what I wanted to show you. Um, I hope you like this video. It's my first one on the Major Arcana. Again, um, next one we'll have to start. We'll get into the Minor Arcana, and we're gonna have to do those in multiple videos because that's a lot of cards. As you see, it took an hour to basically go through just the first 22. Thank you for your time, and I'll post this, and maybe someone will look at it. If not, that's okay too. All right, cheers.